Okay, so today, already maybe after just 6 days of use, I'm giving you my full review of the BQ Aquaris X Pro. But I can already tell you that this is way more than enough, because what won't change my opinion at all are a few more days of my use. But what it takes for that are actually a few more updates coming from BQ. What exactly that means, I will tell you later on, but for now, I would like to continue with the design and build quality, actually praising that build quality, because it feels so well put together, nothing creaks, and it just feels so solid with a meaty button click and also very nice tactile feedback. They are placed very well, and this continues along on the back, because even though it doesn't feel quite as solid on the back like an S7, it feels better than the S8 and also G6, but it actually has one thing in common with the G6, that is that the sides go wider towards the back, which makes the device feel a little bit unnecessary wide and actually makes it feel like this narrow and nicer in the hand. But that is something quite common on some phones, but just a little bit more noticeable on this one. But since it after all still is a little bit more narrow and also just nicer curved off with nicer transition towards the side, it feels still very, very nice. Absolutely great actually, and in my opinion it also looks beautiful with the curves towards the back, with a nice little curve towards the front. It just feels great, looks great, and it is built great. Now, what about the fingerprint reader? That one is placed absolutely okay, and it is very reliable. Maybe, as you can see, not the very fastest one. There are better ones out there, but since it is very solid and reliable, I have no bigger issue with that, because usually if I just take it out of the pocket, it is on, and that is fine. Of course, we also get the LEDs here with the camera. On the top, we have the headphone jack, microphone, and on the left side, we have the SIM card and SD card tray. On the bottom, here we have the microphone, USB Type-C, and the speaker on the right. I already talked about the buttons, very greatly placed, and we have a notification LED along with capacitive buttons. This would be back, home, and recent apps. They are not interchangeable, they are what they are. And as you can already see with the, in my opinion, quite moderate but still black border all around, I would already like to go to the display. Because one thing that is a little bit unfortunate, we don't have any sort of customization. And that just leads to one thing, that is the not that all great white. Because especially in brighter situations outdoors, especially if you are in brighter conditions, you will notice that the bright, which is not so much visible here on the video, is quite kind of plastered with a red tint, and you can't really change it, which is unfortunate, because otherwise, especially indoors, you don't see that so much, and then the white is still a little bit colder, but okay. With the blacks being quite okay, with also a normal amount of IPS glow, it's still the overall quality, because this actually is the brightest panel that I've ever reviewed with 750 lux. The next best thing was 680, and it is super bright, and the colors still know to deliver, because they're very well calibrated, nicely saturated, a little bit over the top, but still maintained to be natural and very, very pleasing. Well done. So if you are mostly using it indoors, you won't really bother about the red tint. If you use it outdoors, it gets though quite obvious, but still it is, I would say, just because of the red tint, maybe just a really maybe close to very good display, not just very good on its own. But the next thing to talk about would be the speaker. The speaker, I have to give it to that, sounds quite loud, and it also sounds very nicely balanced. I didn't really miss anything. It didn't sound too weak, it didn't sound super full either, but very nicely balanced, so no complaints here at all. In all situations, it delivered a great experience, but after all, it is bottom firing, and that's why it's maybe quite good. Really good. It also already needs, at least from my standpoint, a dual speaker system, which it doesn't have. What is also, I would say, okay, is the headphone jack. It sounds quite loud. It could be a little bit better still, especially for a little bit more demanding headphones. For earphones, not a problem, and it sounds quite nice. And that's why I would say let's continue on with the performance. Let's end all apps as usually and start a few of them. But since we are using the Snapdragon 626, which still is very, very close to the 625, don't expect it to be crazy fast. It is mostly absolutely fine and snappy. And there is one thing that I just have to call out. That is that I don't think this particular device or software at the moment is absolutely 100% perfectly optimized, because yes, the browser usually looks quite fine, but what I see throughout all the time of use, that there is some little bit of choppiness, because sometimes, as you can see here, it looks quite smooth, but since I have 4 more Snapdragon 625 phones here in the studio, I just see that all of them perform overall a little bit better. And I don't think it is the 626. I just think it is a little bit of optimization lacking. This, I think, will come And I definitely have quite high hopes because I already got one update since I have this phone. So I definitely think they are working on it. And I think this is just a matter of time. Because even as it is, I would say just because of the minor little choppiness, I will give it maybe just a really good or very close to very good. Because as you can see here with 4 gigs of RAM, which we have here in this version, multitasking is great and it feels very lightweight after all. But this little bit of choppiness is still there, which is something that you actually don't see in games, because games are a little bit better than the 625. Even though we have the same Adreno 506, maybe a little bit more horsepower on the CPU side actually helps games because they feel a little bit smoother, a little bit more lightweight, a little more or a little less frame skips or anything like that. It delivers. You can play all games, absolutely nice. But what it also gets, at least now I have to say, I'm not quite sure if it's just because of the weather, it gets a little bit warmer. But we have temperatures of around 30+ degrees here, so I don't think it's the chip, it's just the heat outside. But it never really felt like it will throttle. And that's why I would say performance for games is absolutely not a problem. And even less so is the battery life, because the charging time was absolutely fine with 1 hour and 35. This is one of the better values these days. Still, 10% of an hour of YouTube is also very good, with maybe just 15% of brightness. But I already told you this device gets very bright very early on. And the lowest brightness is actually just already quite a lot with 30 nit lux, which could be maybe too much for some people, not an issue for me, but I use this phone at 15% all the time, and here in this video I use it actually with 5%. But getting back to the actual battery life, I would say on mobile data on average expect about maybe 6 hours, sometimes a little bit less, but actually even the possibility of maybe 6.5 or even more, depending on your use. It's though the battery life on Wi-Fi that is absolutely fantastic, with about, I would say, at least 9, if not even 10 hours. And overall, it is, after all, this fantastic. Standby range so far seemed fine on Android. Android 7.1.1. I'm still not quite so sure if the standby range issue is fixed that I've seen on many Nougat devices, but so far it seems very, very nice. So let's continue on with the software. But if you have ever seen any Pixel phone or so, you can pretty much already know what to expect, or you know what to expect, because as you can see here, this is pretty much the Pixel launcher, as you can see with the app drawer. As you can see here, this is pretty much stock Android. You can of course rearrange those, and you don't really get anything extra. You get pretty much the typical stock Android software. But this already actually comes with one thing to keep it short: fast updates, because this is already running 7.1.1. Like I said, I already got one update and things seem to improve, because especially one thing that is great, that the camera app can be updated through the Play Store, and I already got 2 camera updates. So everything here seems very nice. Even though it's using stock Android though, it doesn't feel perfectly optimized just yet. I think maybe because the 626 is quite new, it needs a little bit work. Maybe 625 that it just is better optimized, therefore performs a little bit better. But already talking about the camera app, let's continue on with that and talk about that camera. And as you can already see, selfies especially look super nice, because as you can see, super sharp, nice and detailed, great contrast and so on, and everything looks just nice. Especially with good lighting conditions that are not too bright, it delivers absolutely, and I would say almost great. Because especially indoors, it's not quite as solid, and you will see this just in a second. There, it is just not as smooth, especially sometimes a part of the head or my face is blurry, where the rest is super sharp. But still, colors maintained to be very nice, contrasted, saturated, great exposure, and that's why it's at least almost great. Definitely very good for sure. But video, here it is where it gets a little bit wobbly. As you can see, it is a little bit shaky, because there seems to be kind of like some odd stabilization going on, even though that is disabled. So this is just something to be called out. But otherwise, I would say, as you can already see, something that you don't need to see. The next thing, indoors. Okay, so this would be the front-facing yes, and I don't know why I still have the sound on, even though I turned it off. So yeah, you maybe heard the microphone. That one seems absolutely fine. It actually got improved with one update that I got. You can see that it's just not super sharp. It seems smooth, but a little bit wobbly after all. But I would say that is good enough for that. So let's continue on with low light pictures. Here with the flash, it looks really nice and sharp, detailed. Actually without the flash, even still good. And I would say it's at least a really good, if not maybe even better, low light cam, because pictures seem nice. You have to have a steady hand, but then I would say it totally delivers. Outside though, with good lighting, the one thing that I just have to point out, you can definitely get very good results. The autofocus was, in my opinion, very reliable. Sometimes on macros it had a little bit issues, but those were harder objects to get right. But shutter times were fast. colors especially seem very, very natural and very accurate, and you get a very extremely hard or already extreme bokeh effect, which is something that you don't see on these pictures, but the bokeh seems also already kind of artificially enhanced. But then you can see even on landscape footage, a lot of details get maintained. But after all, there are phones like the G6 and just higher end cameras that deliver the great value or rating, and this definitely just gets really good, but very good. But this is the problem here, because this is 4K with video stabilization on, and you can see it looks very choppy, because this is just something that I don't really get, because here the same with 4K without the stabilization already looks a little bit better. And I would say the artifacting isn't actually the issue, and especially things like the autofocus works super nice. As you can see, there is a little bit of some wobbling going on, as you can maybe see now. There is some wobbling going on, but I think it's a very nice subtle transition in terms of autofocus, and this would be 1080p 60 frames, which is noticeably smooth without the stabilization. With, though, it is also a little bit choppy, but that looks noticeably less sharp, and that's why I would say just stick to 4K without stabilization. And then it has the potential, once they maybe fix the choppiness, which is something that I don't get and is even more so visible on the viewfinder, then you could definitely get at least very good video qualities. But as it is for right now, that is just not the case, and that's where it needs a few more optimizations. But for now, I would say let's go to the pros and cons. Here I just have to call out the absolutely great build quality, and in my opinion it also looks very nice, actually very beautiful. We have a reliable fingerprint reader, maybe not more than that, but still it is the brightest display that I've ever reviewed, and it still is a really, if not very good display. We get a quite good speaker, an okay headphone jack, and once again, same as on the display, a really, if not very good performance. A little bit of optimization here is still left after all though. We get fantastic battery life without any issues, stock Android with fast updates. We have Galileo satellite support, which is something that I didn't really emphasize here in the video, because I don't think that's something that most people will be capable to use anyways, but it is there. Maybe some other YouTubers will make videos about that. I don't think it's all that important, at least not for me. Sorry if that's different for you. Almost great selfie cam. We also have a quite good low light cam, a very good main cam, and at least a potentially very good video cam, but that is in brackets since it just isn't the case yet. Now on the negative side, so just not the great side, it's not really compact as you have seen, and it gets wider towards the back. There is also the red tint, especially in brighter situations, that one gets very visible. We also have a minimal yellow tint on three sides, not on the top, but this is super minimal and just something that I have to point out since I'm super picky, but I don't think anyone would have ever noticed. Then the performance should be even better as it is, and I think the 6:6, just since it is so new, needs a little bit more optimization, which I actually think will come quite soon. The camera app needs improvements because of the choppiness of the video cam footage, which is in my opinion quite weird, and that already leads me to my rating for right now. And I think actually I will have to re-review this phone like in a month or so, when all of these minor issues will get fixed. But as it is for right now, a price of around 370 euros, you get 4 gigs of RAM, you get a 6:6, which means amazing battery life, you get 64 gigabytes of storage, an SD card tray, you get an absolutely amazingly built device with a still nice design, even though it gets wider and it's not my maybe first choice, but it seems like all these phones at around this price range have this not quite as compact feel on its own. Like I said, the display could be great if not for the red tint. The speaker is absolutely fine with the sound, no complaints here at all. Performance is absolutely nice, but not yet quite on the level of the best 625 phones. The camera has a lot of potential, but it's not quite there yet. So this just leads me in the end to point out one thing: the price. With 370 euros, I can't quite fully recommend it just yet. But what I also know from a lot of comments of you is that BQ phones usually get already noticeably cheaper already way early in its time, because there are often sales and so on. And the official price doesn't mean all that much. So I think it should get down to closer to 300 quite soon. And then once those minor issues are evened out, I definitely think I can recommend it, because there are just things, especially things like even the red tint could be fixed, and then there is just nothing else, because all the things that are now there that I'm not fully convinced of, which could keep off me recommending it, can actually be fixed, because the software definitely can be optimized, and I think it will happen. The red tint actually could even be fixed. The camera could be fixed, and then there is not much left anymore, because not really compact. It's not a issue because it feels great after all. and yeah, there is not anything left anymore. And then it is actually one of the best 6 to 5 phones in this price range once it comes closer to 300. But I just have to call that out. There is also a Aquaris X without the Pro, which comes with 1 GB of RAM less, half of the storage, and a lesser camera. How good that one especially is with a lower price of around 300, which also means that it will be even cheaper. In reality, that could be actually the better phone in terms of values, and I hope to get that as well. And yes, I am aware of one thing, that I don't maybe sound as positive as I did in the preview, and I don't sound fully convinced. But like I also said, I see the potential, and I feel that a lot of things just need just a little bit of time, just a few more updates, and then this phone will be there where I actually expect it to be, where it's just not yet there. But yeah, I have to test the phone the way I get it, and this is the way I get it. And I don't really like to say it could get better, it should happen, it should happen, but in this case I actually feel that it is the case, because especially things like camera updates, it came in quite often with the software update already. But yeah, if you are not quite as sure, maybe just subscribe to the channel and look out for the revisit review when hopefully all these things are evened out and the price has fallen down. And then, like I said, this could be a super appealing phone for many people, especially since this is one thing that I think point out. This is from a company from Spain. And this means it's a European phone, which is something very rare these days. And this is actually something very important for a few days and actually a buying factor. Now, if it is for you, let me know in the comments, and also if you like this, with a thumbs up and a subscription. But otherwise, I would say have a nice day. Bye.